begin.
Welcome everybody to wisetake.com MMA DFS podcast. I'm your host, Jeff, aka WigSplitter. If you are not already a subscriber, head on over to wisetake.com, check out our extensive coverage of MLB, NFL, NASCAR, MMA, and soon NBA. There's premium write-ups, there's articles, sports-specific chat. We have resident experts on every single sport. Come join us, learn how to be a better DFS player, and have fun at the same time. Some of these guys are funny as fuck. Okay, with that being said, let's jump right into the action of UFC Fight Night 116, Rockhold versus Branch. The first fight on the card is a Fight Night Pass early prelims fight. Jason Sago, 12-3-0 versus Gilbert Burns, 11-2-0. Sago is a 3-2 in the UFC. He throws a lot of variety of leg kicks from the outside to keep distance against his opponent. Mixes in some front kicks, teep kicks, leg and head kicks. He has very nice transmission to submissions, where he likes to end his fights. He's going up against a guy like Gilbert Burns, who's a BJJ black belt. He's 4-2 in the UFC. This dude has impeccable timing. This dude is athletic. His striking, he's been working on his striking. He has an overhand left from the southpaw stance, and his right leg kicks is very accurate. He'll usually go low, then to the body. Sometimes he'll kick to the head. Moving on to the next section is the FS1 prelims. The first fight is Luke Sanders, 11-1-0 versus Felipe Arantas, 18-7-1 with 2 no contests. Sanders is a MMA fighter. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He's very athletic. He has very good transition skills. He's well coached, well rounded, in your face type fighter. He has big takedowns. He loves being on top control, sneaking in shots with his ground and pound. And then he's going up against Felipe Arantas, who's a BJJ striker, 5-4-1 in the UFC. Also a well-rounded fighter. This dude has insane leg kicks. When it comes to fighting on the feet, he packs vicious power in his legs. He throws some knees in the clinch. Average takedown defense. He's got a decent guard. He will throw up some triangles and arm bars on people once he's on the ground. Okay, moving on to the next fight, we have Krzysztof Jotko, 19-2 versus Uriah Hall, 13-8. Jotko is 6-2 in the UFC. He's a striker. He likes using his kicks to keep his opponents at range. He has solid punching combinations. And he also has very good takedown defense. Going up against Uriah Hall, he's 5-6 in the UFC, who owns one of the most nastiest leg to head knockouts I have seen on the Ultimate Fighter TV show a few years back. He starched that dude. They had to take him out on a stretcher. Dude recovered, luckily. This fight honestly has fight of the night potential. Both these guys are flashy strikers. Both are going to bring the fireworks when they're in the ring. They're both aggressive. Jotko's a little more disciplined. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Anthony Hamilton, 15-7 versus Daniel Spitz, 5-1. overall records. Hamilton is 1-0 in the UFC. He has a wrestling base, but he has been working on his striking. He does have 8 knockouts in his career. He has evolved into more of a balanced fighter and not that one-dimensional lay and prayer guy. He's going up against Spitz, who's 1-1 in the UFC. He also is known for his striking, even though he has 3 submission skills under his 3 submission wins underneath his belt. He does work well in the clinch, where he utilizes his knees and overall length to try to keep his opponent keep his opponent standing, so they can keep the fight going. Moving on to the next fight, Tony Martin, 12-3 versus Olivier Aubin-Mercier, 10-2 overall record. Martin is 4-3 in the UFC. This guy is a very aggressive fighter. He likes to take his opponents down. He likes getting on top and just unleashing some wicked ground and pound. He's usually the bigger fighter in the cage. He's pretty tall for this weight class. Going up against Mercier, who's a BJJ judo fighter. He's 5-2 in the UFC. He also has a black belt in judo, brown belt in BJJ. Submission expert. Very deadly on the ground. Seven submissions out of his 10 victories are by submission. Got a pretty decent jab. He likes using his strikes to when he's on the ground to set up his ground and pound as well. Moving on to the main card, we have Justin Lede, 8-0 versus Dmitry Sosnovsky. Someone's O has got to go. Lede is he's a scrappy boxer. Powerful knees. He has a average takedown defense. He does fight through the scrambles well and does have some submission skills. Now Sosnovsky he's making his UFC debut. He has not fought since 2015. He's a wrestler / grappler. Is very composed, like most Russian fighters are. They're very patient, methodical when they're in the ring. But if he could get his hands on his opponent, he usually goes for a double underhook takedown. Does have some decent dirty boxing, and he has good top control. When he gets on top of you, his ground and pound's pretty solid. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have Kamaru Usman versus he's 10-1 versus Sergio Moraes, 12-3-1. Usman is a 5-3 in the UFC. He's a known striker, very accurate with knockout power. He does have a background in wrestling. That's his base. Evident by his 20 takedowns in the UFC in such a short amount of time. Going up against Moraes, who's 6-1-1 in UFC. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. Submission machine. He likes to take his opponent down and choke him out and end the fight. This is gonna be a nice fight too. I could see either a knockout or a submission between these two guys. So fight bonus. Okay, moving on to the next fight, we have Gregor Gillespie going up against Jason Gonzalez. Gillespie's a wrestler. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He has amazing cardio, very good scrambling ability. He likes to take the fight where it benefits him. Super high paced. If you've ever seen a Clay Guida fight, this guy reminds me a lot of him. his volume of punches aren't too bad. He's going up against a guy, Jason Gonzalez, who's a kickboxer / striker. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Very powerful kicker with a lot of flashy spin kicks with a high-paced takedown defense. Isn't bad. He sprawls well, cage wrestles well. He does have power inside the clinch, where wrestlers try to get him down. He'll be able to defend it fairly well. If he does get taken down, he does have some submission wins, but he does have a tendency to get stuck on his back if he is taken down. Moving on to the next fight is Hector Lombard, 34-7-1 with 2 no contests, versus Anthony Smith, 27-12-0. Lombard is the older fighter. I believe he's 39 years old. He's 5-3 in the UFC. He's got a judo, kickboxing background, stand-up fighter. Very powerful. The only thing that concerns me is his age. Plus, at the same time, he is coming off of a hot piss. He got busted by USADA, and usually guys after getting popped by USADA, they tend to fade. He's going up against Anthony Smith, who's 2-0 in the UFC. Another stand-up guy, does have 1 punch knockout power. At the same time, he does have 11 submission victories under his belt. For his overall record, in his 2 fights so far, he has 6 takedown attempts. So takedowns equal scoring points, especially when it comes to DFS. Keep that in mind. And let's move on to the next fight. Mike Perry versus Thiago Alves. Perry is 10-1 in the UFC. Alves is 26-11. Perry is 10-4. No, wait, I take that back. He is not 10-4. He is 3-1 in the UFC. He's a pure striker with heavy hands, boxing background. He wants to keep this fight on his feet. Perry had a funny quote. I wish I would have wrote it down, but they asked him, I guess he had just leveled up in his belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu belt. I think it was blue belt. I could be wrong. And they asked him, you know, oh, you're getting better in your Jiu-Jitsu. And he goes, yeah. He goes, you know what? I don't really need a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu because I got a black belt in these. Dude is nuts, man. This has the makings of a fight of the night. With Thiago Alves is 15-7 in the UFC. He's a very athletic, former champion. You know, he's got knockout power in his hands, effective leg kicks. A lot of his losses have came. 6 of his 11 losses, overall losses, have came by decision. And it's usually because the guys he's fighting don't want to engage, or he'll just he's not very active. So he tends to not push the point as much. If it turns into that, I'm going to lean more towards Alves and a little less on Perry. I'd like to see this fight, but this one is another good fight that has a fight of the night type potential. Moving on to the main event, we have Luke Rockhold, 15-3 versus David Branch, 21-3. Rockhold is 8-2 in the UFC, former middleweight champion, very balanced fighter. He's an accurate striker. He has strong kicks, good ground and pound. Also a polished wrestler with 9 submission victories. Rockhold is able to beat his opponent at their game, which he has finished. He has finished his last 5 victories. Going up against David Branch. I'm not exactly sure how the whole scenario unfolded. But David Branch he's 3-1 in the UFC right now. He left the UFC after, I think it was 2 fights, and then he went to the World Series of Fighting, where he has basically unleashed 11 straight wins. Now, taking into context, if you look at it from the standpoint of, like, let's say Major League Baseball, you have the major leagues, which is the UFC. You have AAA, which is Bellator, and then I'd say World Series of Fighting is AA. But at the same time, he did become their champion there, which you can't, confidence going into fights is huge. The only knock on Rockhold is his chin. He has been knocked out 3 times. With that being said, David Branch is not a knockout fighter. He's a grinder/submission guy. So 7 of his victories have been by submission. That's UFC Fight Night 116, Rockhold versus Branch. This is just a preview. If you want more in-depth coverage, head on over to wisetech.com and sign up for the premium package. Details will be on the website. As always, be safe out there, and come join the team. Owls up top and hooty hoo. All right, you guys have fun. See you later.
Yes.